Okay, picture this classic communication mismatch. One person speaks directly from their feelings, saying, I felt hurt. And instantly the other person defends their motive, shooting back with, well, I didn't mean to. We've all been there, right? It's honestly one of the most frustrating loops in human interaction. But what if I told you that the reason this argument never resolves is because these two people aren't even having the same conversation?
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to break down the exact anatomy of our most frustrating misunderstandings using a really fascinating system called the Deru Kailo framework. Specifically, we're zooming in on what it calls the perception domain. This is that messy space where reality gets blurred, words get completely twisted, and perfectly good intentions crash head-on into very real hurt feelings. Here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, the anatomy of a fight. 2, enter the perception domain. 3, the semantic layer, clarifying the words. 4, the experiential layer, acknowledging the impact. 5, the intentional layer, explaining the motive. And 6, putting it all together. Let's jump right into section 1, the anatomy of a fight, and specifically escalation. So imagine person A says, you never listen, and person B defensively replies, I'm looking right at you. Right off the bat, they are fighting on completely different battlegrounds. Person B is arguing the facts, what Deru Kailo actually calls the physical layer. They're pointing to the observable reality of their physical attention in the room. But the thing is, person A isn't talking about physical reality at all. They're talking about how they feel received. And boom, that is exactly where communication breaks down. Which brings us to section 2. Enter the perception domain, also known as the interpretive bridge.
What's brilliant about this framework is how it condenses massive, complex psychological concepts into just a few simple questions. While raw reality asks what happened, the perception domain asks a totally different question. How was it experienced? This is the domain of lived experience. It acknowledges that, hey, human beings aren't just cold recording instruments. We process events through our nervous system, our past history, and our own unique understanding of language.
And this is exactly why the perception domain is broken down into 3 sequential layers: semantic, experiential, and intentional. The framework points out something so crucial here. We don't just logically think about meaning. We feel it, we hear it, our bodies literally tense up over it, and we aggressively defend against it. So let's explore exactly how this sequence plays out in real life. Moving to section 3, semantic, clarifying the words. This layer deals entirely with wording and definitions. The core question you have to ask here is simply, what do the words actually mean here? You'd be amazed. A massive amount of conflict starts simply because we skipped this step. We just blindly assume a word means the exact same thing to everyone in the room. But assuming a word's meaning is obvious to everyone, yeah, that is a huge trap. Just think about the word listen. If one person uses it to mean hearing the literal words being spoken, but the other person uses it to mean deeply understanding what truly matters, they are going to clash every single time. If we don't clarify that semantic difference right up front, we're going to fight endlessly over the conclusion. I mean, you can't resolve a disagreement if you don't even share the definition of the central word.
Which leads us to section 4, experiential, acknowledging the impact. Okay, so this is the domain of lived experience. The core question is, how did this land emotionally or even bodily? It's that sudden tension in your chest, the pain, the fear, or maybe the relief that happens inside a person when those words hit. Deru Kailo insists that we absolutely must take this layer seriously, because a conversation that only asks what factually happened, sure, but it completely misses the inner reality of the actual people who lived through it. But here is where we have to be super careful. There's a massive trap waiting for us, treating a feeling as automatic proof of a motive. The crucial point to remember is that while feeling dismissed or unsafe is a very, very real experience, that feeling does not automatically prove the other person intended to dismiss you. Impact reveals how an action was received, absolutely, but it doesn't automatically prove what caused it. There is a core mantra in this framework that honestly changes everything. Sincere perception is not always accurate perception. It reminds us that we have to take experience seriously, we should literally never mock or dismiss it, but we also can't treat it as an unquestionable verdict. Think about it. A person can sincerely perceive rejection because of a past wound, even when absolutely zero rejection was intended by the speaker. Now for section 5, intentional, explaining the motive. Here we finally ask, what was meant or attempted? This layer protects fairness around someone's true motive. It looks at the aim, the awareness, or sometimes just the pure carelessness behind an action. See, after we clarify the words and acknowledge how they landed, we finally have the space to look at what the speaker was actually trying to do.
However, answering someone's hurt feelings with, "Hey, I was only trying to help," almost always escalates the fight. Why? Because an explanation is not a repair. Good intent does not erase impact. Deru Kailo teaches that if you jump straight to defending your intention before you've acknowledged the other person's experience, they are just going to hear your defense as a total dismissal of their pain.
All right, Section 6, putting it all together, building your toolkit. So this is the operational sequence you can actually run through in real time. First, clarify the word. Ask what phrase is carrying the conflict. Second, acknowledge the impact. How did it land? Third, explain the intention. What was actually meant? Fourth, state the limit. Recognize what this perception proves and critically what it doesn't prove yet. And finally, you move to the next layer of meaning. Honestly, if you take just one rule away from this explainer, let it be this master sequence for de-escalating any misunderstanding. Clarify the words, acknowledge the impact, then explain intention. Notice the order there. It is incredibly intentional. If you mix up this order, like if you try to explain your intention before acknowledging the impact, the framework warns that the conflict will almost certainly escalate. But as with any powerful tool, we have to remember its boundaries. The most important rule in the entire Deru Kailo system is that safety always comes first. If there's abuse or coercion happening, protection absolutely comes before interpretation, period. Secondly, remember that perception is data, it's not the whole verdict. And lastly, this framework is a tool for understanding, not a weapon for domination. We use it to clarify meaning, never to force agreement or try to control someone else's reality. I want to leave you with this provocative thought, to kind of challenge you to decode your own conflicts. Think back to your last major argument. Were you fighting over the physical facts? Were you clashing over a semantic definition? Or were you answering someone's experiential hurt with your own intentional defense? The next time you find yourself stuck in one of those loops, remember to stop, step back, and ask yourself, which layer are we really fighting on?
Want to learn more? Explore the full framework in reality, perception, and meaning. Available now at derukailo.com and on Amazon Kindle.